Here's a thread connecting three very different stories today. Seeing clearly and being honest about what we're actually looking at. A telescope just found an object so strange that astronomers had to invent a brand new category for it. And they named the survey that found it Mirage or Miracle, because even they weren't sure which it was. A wave of AI-generated video forced Hollywood and a Chinese tech giant to fight over what's real and what's stolen. And satellites over Brazil just showed us something we're rarely allowed to see. A trend everyone assumed was hopeless. Actually reversing. Let's start at the edge of the observable universe. Astronomers using the James Webb Space Telescope have announced in the journal Nature the discovery of a genuinely new type of cosmic object. They're calling it a black hole star, and the specific one they found has the catalog name MOM BH Star 1. And I want to walk through what this thing actually is, because it is one of the strangest objects ever described, and the story of how they found it is a small masterclass in how good science is supposed to work. Here's the setup. JWST, which can see farther back in time than any telescope before it, has been finding these mysterious little smudges in the early universe that astronomers nicknamed little red dots. They're compact, they're intensely red, and nobody could agree on what they were. They've been, in the words of one researcher, one of the most debated puzzles of the entire Webb era. So a team went hunting through Webb's data specifically to crack this mystery. And the survey they used was called, and I love this, Mirage or Miracle. That name is the whole point, so hold on to it. And they found MOM BH STH1. This object sits billions of light years away, so far that we're seeing it as it existed just 660 million years after the Big Bang, the era astronomers poetically call Cosmic Dawn, the very first chapter of the universe. And here's what makes it bizarre. It looks, in some ways, like a single colossal star. It shows a spectral feature called a Balmer break, the strongest ever measured anywhere, which is normally produced by dense gas in the outer atmosphere of a star. But no star could possibly produce this much light. This object shines something like 100 billion times brighter than a typical star, and it outshines its entire host galaxy. Ordinary nuclear fusion, the thing that powers stars, physically cannot generate that, so it can't just be a star. What the researchers propose instead is genuinely mind-bending. It's a young, rapidly feeding black hole, maybe around 100,000 times the mass of our sun, wrapped inside an enormous, dense cloud of hydrogen gas, roughly the size of our entire solar system. The gas falling into the black hole heats up and blazes with radiation before it disappears past the point of no return, and the whole thing is cloaked in so much gas that from the outside, it masquerades as a giant star, a black hole wearing a star as a costume. That's the black hole star, and it might finally explain those mysterious little red dots. A June 2026 study already flagged 241 more candidate objects that could be the same phenomenon. If that holds up, it could even help solve one of the biggest puzzles in astronomy. How supermassive black holes got so enormous, so incredibly fast in the young universe. Maybe they went through this gas-cloaked black hole star phase first. Now, here's where I get critical, and it's not criticism of the science, it's praise for how careful it is, which is a thing we should reward far more than we do. Notice how this discovery is being described if you read past the headlines. The lead researcher called it 1 in a billion, but the actual scientific papers are full of hedges. The mass estimate depends on the model used, and the study itself explicitly warns of possible overestimations. The object is a proposed member of a new class, an interpretation, not a closed case. And that survey name, Mirage or Miracle, is the scientists themselves openly admitting, before they found anything, that a stunning result might turn out to be a trick of the data, a mirage, rather than a real new thing, a miracle. I cannot stress enough how much I want you to notice that, because it is the exact opposite of how most confident claims reach you. Compare it to a politician or an ad, or a viral post, where the incentive is always to sound more certain than the evidence justifies, to round every maybe up to a definitely. Here you have people who found something that could rewrite a chapter of cosmology, and their instinct is to build the doubt right into the name. That's not weakness. That's the strength of the whole enterprise. Good science doesn't sell you certainty. It shows you its uncertainty on purpose, so you can trust the parts that survive the doubt. So my take, enjoy the genuine wonder of this. A black hole disguised as a star at the dawn of time is about as awe-inspiring as news gets. But take the deeper lesson too. When the people who found the most extraordinary thing in the sky are this careful to say it might be a mirage, it should make you a lot more skeptical of everyone in your daily life who found something far less extraordinary and is absolutely unshakably certain about it. The question I'll leave you with: what would change if we all named our own conclusions mirage or miracle before we went looking to confirm them? Now, from telling a real object from a mirage in space, to a much messier fight about telling the real from the fake right here on Earth. Because AI has made that line blurrier than ever, and Hollywood just cut a deal about it. The Motion Picture Association, the trade group representing the giant Hollywood studios, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Sony, Paramount, Netflix, just signed an agreement with the Chinese tech giant ByteDance, the owner of TikTok. And the deal is about ByteDance's AI tools, its video generator, Seedance, and its image generator, Seedream. Let me give you the backstory, because it's essential to understanding why this matters. ByteDance released Seedance 2.0, an AI video generator so good that it went instantly, explosively viral. People were typing in short text prompts and getting cinematic, realistic clips, and a lot of those clips featured copyrighted characters and famous actors without any permission at all. One clip that lit the fuse showed AI versions of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fighting in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Others showed Batman fighting Spider-Man, Superman fighting Thanos, alternate endings to Game of Thrones. And Hollywood reacted with fury. Disney fired off a cease and desist letter, accusing ByteDance of a virtual smash and grab of its intellectual property, alleging the tool had effectively been preloaded with a pirated library of copyrighted characters, treated like free clip art. Warner Bros. Accused it of blatant infringement of Superman, Batman, and Game of Thrones. The actors' union SAG-AFTRA said it was an unacceptable theft of its members' voices and likenesses that undercuts human talent's ability to earn a living. So this new agreement, signed this week, is the resolution of that fight. A memorandum of understanding to strengthen copyright safeguards on ByteDance's AI tools. And on the surface, that sounds like a clean win for the creators. The head of the MPA said it illustrates that copyright is a cornerstone of the film industry. Peace in our time. But here's where I have to be critical, because when you look at what the deal actually contains, and crucially, what it doesn't, it's a lot shakier than the headline suggests. Two big problems. First, the guardrails don't fully work, and everyone involved seems to quietly know it. Independent testers, red teamers, people who deliberately try to break these systems, have documented that with clever prompting, you can still get these AI tools to produce what's called likeness-adjacent output. Not an exact copy of Batman, but something close enough that everyone knows what it is. ByteDance had already added watermarks, filters, and face blocking to earlier versions, and reporting indicates those controls are helpful but not foolproof. So this agreement is essentially a promise to keep patching a leak that the patching, so far, hasn't stopped. The public announcement did not disclose the actual technical thresholds, the enforcement procedures, or even when any of this rolls out in the US. It's an agreement to agree, with the hard parts left vague. Second, and more interesting, the whole framework treats this as a problem of blocking theft, when there's a much more revealing alternative sitting right next to it. Because ByteDance itself built a different model for exactly this, called Volcano Arc, where actors and performers can license their digital likeness. Creators can generate video using that likeness, and the actor gets paid a share of the fee. Sit with the contrast there. One model is, we'll try to build filters to stop you from stealing faces. The other is, we'll build a marketplace where you pay for the faces and the humans get a cut. And I'd argue the second one is the actual future, and the far more honest one. The problem was never really the technology's ability to make a face. It's the question of consent and payment. Did the human being agree, and did they get compensated? Give a small amount of credit that a fight got resolved without years of litigation, and that a major AI company formally acknowledged in writing that copyright matters. That's not nothing. But don't mistake this agreement for a solution. It's a truce. Not a treaty, a promise to keep improving filters that are already known to be beatable, with the enforcement details hidden. The genuinely important development isn't the handshake. It's the licensing model quietly running alongside it, because that's the one that actually answers the real question. The critical lesson here, and it echoes the black hole story, be suspicious of the confident, clean headline, Hollywood and ByteDance reach deal, and go look at the fine print, where the reality is always messier, and the real story is usually hiding. Alright, I've spent 2 stories urging skepticism, telling you to distrust the tidy version. So let me end somewhere genuinely, verifiably hopeful, because being critical also means being willing to accept good news when the evidence actually supports it. New satellite data from Brazil's National Institute for Space Research, INPE, shows that deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon has fallen to its lowest level in over a decade. Let me give you the numbers, because they're real and they're substantial. Their near real-time alert system detected 874 square kilometers of deforestation in the Amazon between August 2025 and July 2026. That's down roughly 36 to 37% from the previous 12 months, and about 55% below the average of the preceding decade. It's the lowest total since this monitoring series began in 2015, and going back further. The lowest since around 2012-13. For the world's largest rainforest, the planet's single most important carbon sink, a place people have described for years only in terms of loss and doom. That is a genuinely major, genuinely good piece of news. And I want to sit in that for a second, because we don't do it enough. The story we're always told about the Amazon is a one-way ratchet of destruction. It only ever gets worse. This data says that's not true. Deforestation soared to more than 10,000 square kilometers a year at its recent peak. It has now fallen dramatically after a change in government and a serious ramp-up in environmental enforcement, monitoring, and protection of indigenous territories. As one Brazilian scientist put it, this is evidence that deforestation is not an inevitable process, that it responds to decisions made by governments and by society. That's a profound and hopeful idea. The destruction was a choice, which means stopping it is also a choice, and the choice is working. But, and I promised I'd stay critical even with good news, because credulous optimism is just as lazy as reflexive doom. There are 3 honest caveats that the celebration needs, and leaving them out would be its own kind of dishonesty. First, a small but telling media literacy point. You'll see this reported as both 36% lower and 37% lower from the exact same underlying data. That 1 percentage point wobble isn't anyone lying. It's just different outlets rounding the same number slightly differently. But it's a nice reminder to always ask where a precise-sounding figure comes from, even in a story you like. Second, and more important, what this number measures. This is the deter system, a near real-time alert system designed to help enforcement agents spot and stop new clearing fast. It is not Brazil's official, final annual benchmark. That's a separate, higher-resolution system called PRODES that comes out later. So this is a strong, encouraging signal, but it's the fast preliminary read, not the final certified word. Good news, correctly labeled. And third, the deepest caveat from the experts themselves. Less clear-cutting does not mean the Amazon is safe. As one scientist bluntly warned, a drop in deforestation doesn't mean the forest is protected. Clear-cutting is only one threat. The forest can still be devastated by fire, by drought, and by the subtler process of degradation, where a forest is left standing, but hollowed out and damaged. And there's a specific storm cloud on the horizon. Forecasters are warning of a possible super El Niño that could bring severe drought to the Amazon, and drought plus heat plus criminal fires is a recipe for disaster that no deforestation statistic captures. So the fight is far from won. And it's the note I want to end on. This is real, earned good news, and you are allowed to feel genuinely encouraged by it. Being a critical thinker does not mean being a professional pessimist. The Amazon result proves something the other two stories only gesture at: that clear-eyed effort. Backed by real monitoring and real enforcement, can bend a curve everyone assumed was unbendable. But hold it honestly, as a fragile, preliminary, reversible victory that still needs protecting, not a finished triumph you can stop worrying about. That's not cynicism watering down the good news. That's what it looks like to take good news seriously enough to want to protect it. So let me tie all three together, because they're one lesson in how to see clearly. Astronomers found something extraordinary and had the discipline to call it maybe a mirage. Hollywood and a tech giant announced a clean-sounding deal that in the fine print is a leaky, unfinished truce. And Brazil delivered genuinely wonderful news that comes wrapped in genuine, necessary caveats. In all three, the honest version of the story lives in the same place, not in the confident headline, but in the careful details underneath it, the hedges, the fine print, the caveats. And the people worth trusting, in science, in business, in the news, are the ones who show you those details instead of hiding them. So here's what I'll leave you with. The instinct to round everything up to certainty. It's definitely a new object. The problem is definitely solved. The forest is definitely saved. Is everywhere, because certainty sells and nuance doesn't. But the most trustworthy voices you'll encounter do the opposite. They hand you the doubt along with the discovery. So look for the mirage or miracle in everything. The honest uncertainty built into an honest claim. When someone shows it to you, trust them a little more. And when someone's certainty seems too clean, too complete, too convenient, that's exactly when you should go looking for the fine print they left out. Take care of each other, and I'll see you next time.